Secret number 7. Stop listening to Aunt Harry and Uncle Lily. Who's Aunt Harry? Who's Uncle Lily? Well, in today's time, there's a bunch of they, thems, she, she. There's a bunch of that stuff. And honestly, I don't understand it. And I really don't care to understand it. Part of the reason why is because it takes away from the people that have real issues. So I have a friend, a professional associate. Her name is Troi. And Troi published a book to help Black women going through birth. And because she tried to be so inclusive with her book, she minimizes and she forgot about who she wrote the book for, which were Black women. So because she was trying to be so inclusive, she was exclusive of the people that she was trying to serve. So I say stop listening to Aunt Harry, Uncle Lily, because the context is you got aunt, uncles, you got family members that are going to encourage you. And their intent is pure. Their motives are pure. However, that does not necessarily mean that it is what's best for you. Okay? They're going to tell you everything that you want to hear, and they're going to tell you whatever makes you feel good, but that's not the truth. You have to be willing to hear the truth from people that have no malicious or toxic positive agenda. You have to be willing to listen to people that want what's best for you and who are willing to tell the truth, despite your feelings. I would say you want people to consider your feelings, but most people take that too far. So I want you to understand being around good people. Don't listen to Aunt Harry and Uncle Lily. Don't listen to your friends and family because they're going to give you toxic positivity, and it's not necessary. It's not necessary, and it's not essential to your success. It's essential that you are around good people with goals and good intent, because they will tell you how it is without the negative agenda of making you feel bad. So what this means is this is the complete opposite of what I just said. And when you get around other business owners, other associates, other people that are willing to grow, they're going to be they should be so obsessed with succeeding themselves or being a good character themselves that they don't have time to tell you negative things that are going to make you feel bad for the sake of feeling bad. A really good example is I had a colleague in the past, and I would give him feedback. And he would always say that I was bashing him and harping. And I never was. I was just giving him feedback to grow as a person and feedback for him to grow as an individual. So I want you to understand that same concept. And I want you to be around those types of people that don't get anything out of you failing or succeeding. There's no immediate result or return from them. So they're willing to give you that feedback and willing to give you that input. Okay. The next secret, speed of implementation. I learned this from a book called The 22 Immutable Laws of Leadership. And if you want to learn more detail about that, just go through that book. Okay. The law essentially means is that it's better to be first than it is to be last. And it doesn't necessarily mean first place, but the context, it really depends. Okay. So some examples that were given inside of the book was Xerox, right? A lot of people say, oh, I'm going to make a Xerox of that because Xerox was the first known copy machine in the industry. It's a machine where you put papers on and you make a copy of that. So people say Xerox, that's the name, that's the brand, because Xerox was the first known brand. Another example is Kleenex. People say, can you pass me a Kleenex? because that was the first known brand for tissues to wipe your nose or whatever the brand was. Another example, a current modern day example is Uber. Catch an Uber over. I mean, you might hear people say catch a Lyft sometimes too, but for the most part, the more popular platform, the more popular phrase is Uber. Despite how good or bad it is compared to the other services, I'm quite sure some people can think of better services than Uber. But Uber is more known because they were first to market. Same concept here with Airbnb. Airbnb is it stands for Air Bed and Breakfast, and essentially what it is it's short-term rental stays. And short-term rental stays is where you go. It's essentially what they're doing is they are. It's an alternative to hotel stays. You stay at a place of residence, and there are other companies like Airbnb, but the one that most people know and the more popular phrase that people use is Airbnb because they were the first. They were first known in the market because of their marketing. So that's the law. That's the law of speedership. That's the law of leadership. I'm going to give two more modern day examples. So Facebook versus Meta. Now, many of us know Facebook as. Many of us know Meta as Facebook. They changed the company name and it's sticking. We're accustomed to calling it Facebook because that was the first known platform. That's what we called it first. They've completely changed their entire name, but it's difficult to get us to call it the new name because Facebook is what was first. It's top of mind. It's the first in your mind. It's the first name compared to Meta. The second, very similar, is Twitter/X. The company name is now X, but what most people know of the platform is Twitter. The name of the platform is now X, but we mostly know it as Twitter now. Okay, so that demonstrates the law of speedership. Like, be first to market, be first to mind, be top of mind, right? You don't have to be the best. We can easily say none of these platforms are the best or none of these examples that I gave, but they're the first to mind. And because of that, they are typically more successful or they do better than competitors or alternatives. When it comes to the law of speedership, the law of leadership, I like to talk about speed of implementation. And many people get in their own way because of mindset things. So I got to line my ducks up in a row. I gotta make sure it's perfect. I need like the perfect outline. I need to get started. And I'm thinking about, I just finished a call with an associate. His name is George. And George was talking all about getting his book published and creating a new book and creating this, that. And because George wants his product to be perfect, it's likely not going to get done anytime soon. And because of that, I get passionate about this is because people are missing out on your product or service because you're so selfish in your head that you don't get it out to market. You won't serve it to people. Okay. So speed of implementation, there's a point where things are good enough, but it doesn't mean you stop there. It doesn't mean you put out trash, and it doesn't mean you put out crap. So I talked about the example earlier where I had a mastermind and I was working with a colleague at the time. We're going to call that colleague Carlton. And Carlton put a book together and the book was trash. It was crap. And we gave him feedback. And that's part of the reason why he got upset. We gave him feedback and we said, this looks terrible. That was the general consensus of the mastermind. And we told him it was terrible, but we also offer solutions. And he was so defensive that he could not receive that feedback. So understand what good enough is, but understand things don't need to be perfect. There needs to be a balance. And one of the best ways to get the balance and understand that is to consult and talk with other people. Because many times, most people are critical, like hypercritical of themselves. And I don't mean this in a fluffy way. I mean this in a real direct way. Right? So when I'm talking, I'm very intentional. And I said most people, because you know what? I'm hypercritical of myself, but I never let me being critical of myself stop me from serving other people. Stop me from putting the product out to market. Stop me from making a conversation. Stop me from having that phone call. And you should do the same thing. Understand that there is a such thing as good enough, but you also don't want to put out junk, trash, or crap. Okay? The next secret I wanted to incorporate is people need to understand that you're dangerous. Okay? I didn't say tough. I didn't even say violent, but people need to understand that there's danger if they mess with you. There's a saying that nice guys finish last, and I absolutely agree. People walk over nice people. So while you may want to be nice, you may want to be friendly, and you may want to serve other people in that friendly, upbeat way. People need to understand that there is a hint of danger to you, so they can know not to mess with you. Okay. Sometimes you need to sting people, so they know, oh, if I mess with Jerome, he's going to sting me. He might pop me. He might strike back. He might say something that I don't want to hear. They need to understand that. I'm one of the nicest people you could ever meet. I have no intention of attacking people. I want everybody to be great. I want everybody to win. But because of that, sometimes people take advantage and try to push their own agendas on you, what they want to get out of you. They want you to be a nice guy. They want you to be a pushover. This way, they can get what they want out of you. They can manipulate you and squeeze you for their benefit. The next point of that is bullies. So I was bullied as a child. And however, it changed, right? I remember in kindergarten, there was a big bully. He was, let's just say he was big bone to be nice. Or actually, let me not say that. He was fat. He was a fat kid, and obviously he had insecurities himself. So he would pick on me. Why did he pick on me? Because I was soft, I was weak, I was frail. And he knew that. I told my mother about this bully, and she came up to the school and she told that bully to stop. And he did stop, but I didn't learn anything from it. So the point I want to make is that I didn't learn anything from it, and I continued to get bullied up until about fourth grade is what I remember. And the reason why I stopped getting bullied was because I started striking back. I started giving insults to other people that they were giving to me. When people hit me, I started hitting them back. And people started to understand the point that I made before, it is that I was dangerous. I couldn't fight necessarily, but I was dangerous. I had anger. I had resentment. I had things within me that I started to learn how to harbor and project onto other people if they messed with me. So the point I wanted to make is that people need to understand that you're dangerous. And when they do, they will stop picking with you. They will not mess with you. They might test the water sometimes, but you strike them and they know. So bullies pick on people that they know they can mess with. It's not even about being able to fight. It's about being able to strike back. Bullies, in many cases, are not intellectually inferior. They're smart enough to choose their battles wisely. What bully thinks, I'm going to pick on that person because I know they will defend themselves each time. It just doesn't happen. Bullies pick with people they know they can pick with. Okay. The next point. There's a quote which I absolutely disagree with. In my experience, this has not been true. And that quote is, People do business with who they know, like, and trust. And I would like to modify that quote. I would like to modify that statement. People do business with who they know, and people do business with who they trust. I think liking people is not a prerequisite to do business. It may heighten your chances of doing business with someone, but it should not be a requisite, or it is not a condition of doing business with you. So people must, number one, they must know of you to do business. And the way that people know of you as entrepreneurs and business owners, that's through marketing. And there are several ways you can do marketing, but one of the things I want you to understand is establish a marketing budget as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. Incorporate marketing. Why would you be so hesitant and scared to spend money when you're going to make your money back? Think of marketing as an investment. And normally when I'm dealing with people, I'm dealing with people who are going to spend some money. They're going to spend money and they're going to make more money than they get out of it. So in terms of real estate, would you be willing to spend $3,000 when you're going to get a real estate deal and it's going to pay you $5,000? You should be, because that's like a 60% return on your investment. You don't make a 60% return anywhere, actively and knowingly. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Don't be scared to spend money on marketing. Next key point I want to make, and this is about knowing. Marketing helps people know who you are. Marketing helps people know what your services are. And finally, what I have a quote from one of my mentors, and his name is Dan Kennedy. Dan Kennedy says, marketing isn't something you learn, it's something you do. Basically, marketing never stops. So I want you to understand that. Okay. The next secret, invest in yourself. Investing in yourself and your business is a requirement for success. Stop looking for exceptions to the rule. So what I mean by that is people believe that they can go to YouTube University and learn everything they need to learn to be successful in business, which is possible. However, you're not investing, right? Money behaves in a certain way, and money has energy, and I don't mean it in a fluffy way. It has energy, it has intent. There are things behind money. So if you take money, you understand, you know what? I'm going to invest this money and I'm going to get a return out. You set that intention on your money, it will come back. It will grow to you. It will multiply. So you have to understand how to treat money. Invest in yourself and your business. Don't be afraid to invest. One of the first investments that I made, this is one of the first, it's not the first. It paid itself. I paid $10,000 for this investment, but I've made way more than that $10,000. However, I probably likely would have never made that money back if I didn't invest in that program. And many times people say, which I'll talk about in detail a little bit later, but will this work? And it's not if this will work. It's, are you willing to invest in yourself for a better future? Are you willing to invest in your business for financial freedom? Think about it that way. Don't think about investing or spending money as an expense. Think about it as an investment. The next secret, the next rule, coaches are essential to success. So I just mentioned, stop looking for exceptions to the rule. Most people do that. Don't look for exceptions to the rule. Pay attention to the majority of what's happening. The majority of successful people do what? They have what? They have coaches. Coaches are essential to success. Think about professional athletes. They absolutely have coaches, right? And a good example I like to make about coaching is that sometimes these coaches couldn't dare compete with the celebrity. or the basketball player as an example, right? You have a professional basketball player, they will dominate many of these coaches. However, they still need that coach's input and that coach's guidance. Right? So coaches are essential to success. And just because you didn't get rich overnight, once you pay for a course or a coaching program, doesn't mean you purchased a bad product or hired a bad coach. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes you're not implementing. Sometimes it's just not time. But that's the purpose of what I said earlier. That's the purpose of this lecture, this speech, this video that I'm doing. Don't wait. Don't quit. Do it, and do it now, because the time will pass anyway. And at least when the opportunity presents itself, when God is ready to give you what's yours, when the universe is ready to give you what's yours, you can take full advantage of that opportunity because you didn't quit. All professionals, athletes, and celebrities people look up to have coaches. And they have several coaches at that. Okay, next. Next secret, perfection. Man, there's a really good video by Grant Cardone. And he says, the perfectionist is a liar. Perfection is a fancy way of saying, I'm not doing shit. And I agree with that 100%. Many people say I'm a perfectionist because they don't want to do the work. And that's the bottom line. Perfection is a lie that cowardly people tell themselves so they don't have to take any risks. Focus on progress, not perfection, because you're never going to attain perfection. It's a rat race. You will never attain perfection. It's impossible. And keep in mind the good enough concept, the good enough secret that I talked about earlier. Next secret, the next secret, the self-made woman and the self-made man is a myth. Nobody did anything by themselves. It's literally impossible. You need other people to succeed. What makes you think that you are special enough not to ask for help? That is one of the most selfish, self-serving things, self-serving attitudes in existence. I challenge you, I'm very confrontational, but I challenge any person. I challenge you to show me one successful person that achieved success by themselves. It's impossible. Right? I was having this conversation with a woman. We're gonna call her Erica. And I said, Erica, why are you so afraid to ask for help? And she said, because I'm afraid people will throw it in my face. Which I completely and absolutely understand. But if those people are going to throw something like that in your face, you need to change your circle. Okay. The next question I asked her is, I said, what have you done by yourself without other people? And she tried to say, I got my house, I got my job. Okay. You didn't do those things by yourself. Guess what, right? We go to the house. Someone built that house. Right? If we talk about you purchasing a house, you may have purchased it through a realtor, as an example. We talk about the money that you paid for the house. Someone printed that money. Someone gave someone the concept to print that money. So it's literally impossible to succeed by yourself. And we really need to stop thinking that we can do things all alone and by ourselves. No successful person does things by themselves and all alone. It is impossible. Lose the idea that asking for help is a weakness. It's actually one of the greatest strengths. And you think about the greatest leaders, they all had help. And they attribute help to success to other people, whether it's a wife, a co-founder, people raising capital for their product, whether it's the customers that are paying for their products. It is literally impossible to succeed by yourself. Asking for help is not a weakness. It's actually a strength. And you likely don't have the strength to do that. Therefore, you are weak and you have to work on making it so you're not a weak individual. Next, imposter syndrome. there's a syndrome. They make syndromes about everything these days. And it's just a way, it's just a fluffy way to say that people aren't willing to do the work. You should practically work to get rid of imposter syndrome. It's a made up, it's a fluffy myth. Imposter syndrome is for imposters. You feel like an imposter, likely if you feel that way, because you are an imposter. Now, what can we do to eliminate that feeling of imposter syndrome? Well, the way we do that is we work practically to get rid of imposter syndrome. Okay. We got to fix our mindset, right? So we got to adjust that mindset. Stop feeling and stop thinking like you're some kind of imposter is number one. But to practically fix it, only teach things you have experience with. It's that simple. If you only teach and talk about things that you have experience with, there's no room for being an imposter. The reason why most people feel like they're imposters is because they're not doing the stuff that they're talking about. They're not implementing the things that they're talking about. And they feel like someone's going to call them out. And yes, eventually someone will call you out. Most people can see that. People that have imposter syndrome, they feel seen. They're insecure because they know that people know they are imposters. I had a colleague that was like that. He didn't appreciate feedback. And the reason why he didn't appreciate feedback is because he was imposting. He was being an imposter. And I always told him, look, if you work towards not being an imposter, if you actually fix your skills, he had like his confidence. I don't know if this is true, but this is my observation. His confidence was through the roof, but his skills was on the ground. And I told him, if you work on your skills and you work to where your skills are through the roof, like your confidence, you won't have that issue of imposter syndrome. There is a YouTube channel called Spencer Cornelia, and Spencer goes through and he exposes gurus for things that they do. And this guy has such a problem with Spencer exposing gurus and exposing people. He just had this personal like vendetta against this guy for giving his feedback and his perspective. And I said, you know what? I actually like that guy. You know why? Because he brings facts. And he does. So if you're an imposter, you need to work on your craft. The only people who are going to feel like, oh, I'm going to get called out are people that will get called out because they don't have the skills. Okay. So the bottom line is only teach things you know and have experience with. It's that simple. Here's an example. Your life. Nobody can tell you that you're an imposter for your own life. Right? For example, I do a lot of how-to content. This is how you do this. Right? And I talk confidently because I know that's how you do it. Some people are afraid to do how-to because they struggle with confidence. Well, I want to communicate to you, shift it. If you're afraid to do how to, you're afraid to be an authority, shift it. And the way you shift it is go from how to and how you to how I. So here's an example. How you can write a book as an example. You might not necessarily know how that person can write a book, but you know how you can write a book. So you would shift your headline, you would shift what you're teaching. You tell people how I write a book, how I can write a book. And nobody can challenge you on that because that's your true experience. Okay? The next secret, version 1 is better than version 9. So I hinted on this a little bit earlier. And most people, again, they try to get everything, they try to get all their ducks in a row. And I call this getting ready to get ready to get ready to get ready. And because people are getting ready to get ready to get ready to get ready, they never actually do the thing that matters. So I had a mentor, I had a coach, which I've referenced in a prior chapter, where I paid $10,000 for that coach. And one of the best things, I've gotten several things from that coach. Her name is Darcy. One of the best things that I've gotten from that coach was that particular quote there. I was living by the philosophy already, but she helped me put it into simple terms. Version 1 is better than version none. And that means do something. Something is better than nothing. Now keep in mind, I don't want you putting out crap. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not justifying you throwing stuff out there that look like a bunch of junk. But I'm also saying make sure you don't get so stuck that you put nothing out. Remember Parkinson's law that we talked about earlier. Work on that thing as much as you can. And then when that deadline hits, you put it out. You get it out to market. You write your book. You create your video. You create your webinar. You make that phone call. You start generating those leads. You start spending money on that campaign. My favorite example of version 1 is better than version 9 is my book, Real Estate Marketing Implementation. That's the book where I showed everything that I could on how to. It's 520 pages as of this recording. When I initially wrote the book, it was only about 170 pages. The book was atrocious, if I'm being honest. It was full of errors. It was full of grammar mistakes, but I still got it out to market. And it became a #1 best-selling book with those errors, with those mistakes, and on the market. But you know what? It helped serve many people as well. I have served over 9,854 real estate entrepreneurs. That's the last I counted. And I've helped all of them because I wasn't worrying about my product being perfect. I had to get it out to the market. Progress is better than perfection. Next, most people aren't thinking about things as much as we are. Okay. So while you're expecting your product to be perfect, most people don't care. They got their own issues. They're paying attention to their own stuff. Okay. When I got my book out to the market, many people were just happy to support me. And that's what happens when you have good people around you. All right. They were happy to support me, and they were happy to support the fact that I got the book done and I got it out there. So keep that in mind with things that you do as well. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you can help people, go help them. Next secret. What you think of yourself is more important than what everyone else thinks of you, especially Aunt Harry, Uncle Lilly, and Uncle Karen. I had a very toxic grandmother when I was growing up. I recently lost her. Rest in peace, Grandma. I love you, and I appreciate you. She used to abuse my mother. And my mother, I love my mother more than any woman, anybody. That's the #1 person that I love. My grandma used to abuse my mother so much to the point where my mother didn't allow us to go around my grandmother often. She just didn't, because she didn't want us to be around that abuse and that negativity. But we did see our grandmother a few times. We were taken away in foster care, and there was a bunch of stuff that happened. But I remember one thing that my grandmother would say, and she would always ask us this question. She would ask us this question when we saw her: who is the sexiest motherfucker you know? And I don't say this in an arrogant way. Too many people get arrogant and they believe that they're untouchable. I don't mean it that way. But that stuck with me. Because although she was a bit toxic and negative, her messaging was correct. And I don't mean that you should think you're the sexiest person and you should go out there and project that on the world and think that you're untouchable. But internally, to you, You should be the most important person in your life. Not your spouse, not your kids, not your brother, your grandmother, your grandmother, your sibling. You. You can't pour from an empty cup. And that's one of those corny quotes and corny sayings, but I absolutely agree with that 100%. The better you feel about yourself and the better you love yourself, the more you can love others and the more you can help others as well. Next, people do business with who they know, like, and trust. Don't get caught up in the like. Just because you don't like a person doesn't mean you can't have success. I work with plenty of people. Some people I didn't necessarily like. And they helped me go towards success. Work more towards trust. There are plenty of people who don't like me, but they trust me. So I hate that saying about people who do business with who they know, like, and trust. Many people go for the likability because that's what feels good and that's what's comfortable. But people come to me not because they like me, but because they trust me. They trust I'm going to get the job done. They trust that I'm going to get them results. And I want you to have that same mindset, right? I want you to work with people that you trust. A really good example is I'm part of a RIA group. And one of the leaders, her name's Vina, she shared a story about this likable guy. This guy was just so likable and they loved him. People loved him. He had so much potential. And because they liked him, they decided to do business with him. So just because you like a person doesn't necessarily mean you should trust them to get things done in our world as an entrepreneur. I have another example. I know a person, we're going to call him Carlton. And everyone liked this person. They even loved him, right? There's a book called Surrounded by Idiots. And I like to reference this book because it talks about behavioral types. And there's a particular color, the yellow color, which is high I, and people just love these personalities. They loved this gentleman. They absolutely loved him. He was likable. He was fun. They loved him, but nobody trusted him. And I worked with him. He was a partner, and they would always come to me and they would say, I'm here because of you, Jerome. I know and I trust that you're going to make sure this gets done. And I would constantly ask, like, what's the feedback? Why don't you want to work with that guy? Don't you like that gentleman? Don't you like him? And he said yes. And they absolutely did like him, but they did not trust him. So I encourage you to prioritize trust and emphasize trust more than liking.